I first met our keynote speaker in 2014 as part of the business delegation accompanying David Cameron on his trip to Israel. The meeting with Erel was without doubt the most memorable, as it was the only meeting where the aides had to draw things to a close 3 times, given the level of interest as Erel shared his vision for a UK tech ecosystem with us. Sadly, the shortening of that meeting was to France's advantage, as President Macron has called on Erel to help make France a digital leader now. Ever since that meeting, I've been courting Erel, waiting patiently whilst he put aside party politics during his time in the Knesset to lay the foundations for his regional initiatives, which we'll hear about. As soon as he resigned from the Knesset last autumn, I was back onto him, and he quickly agreed to join us here tonight in London. Erel is one of the architects of the startup nation, and before his 5 years as an opposition member of the Knesset, Erel founded one of Israel's most successful venture capital funds, Jerusalem Venture Partners, funding and building 120 companies since 1993, with 12 IPOs on NASDAQ, sorry about that, London Stock Exchange, and 19 M&A transactions, generating over $20 billion of transaction value. At the same time as building his fund, Erel also put huge efforts into building a tech ecosystem in Jerusalem, creating thousands of jobs, as many of you will have read in City AM this morning. Many of us wrongly think firstly of Tel Aviv when it comes to Israeli high-tech, but as our recent delegations have seen, Jerusalem is home to just as many high-tech companies, including Israel's largest ever exit, Mobileye. With a desire to create a positive social as well as business impact, Erel took the same model used to transform Jerusalem to the desert, creating a cybersecurity center of excellence in Beersheba, bringing his fund JVP as an anchor, and global names like Lockheed Martin, IBM, Dell, and Oracle into the fold, transforming a disadvantaged desert town. The impact investing approach, creating both a business profit and a social profit, is a value that UK Israel business firmly believes in and shines a spotlight on, as we will later hear when our Lifetime Achievement Award is presented. Whilst in Parliament, Erel did something unexpected. He spent time working with 14 Arab countries on key shared initiatives, such as energy, security, and water, bringing a business approach to politics. And this is something that he now continues through the Innovation Initiative for the Mediterranean Basin countries. Erel is a man who steadily translates his visions into reality. Having already transformed his home city, Jerusalem, followed by other areas in Israel, he's now starting with the rest of the region. It's now time to hear from Erel about how innovation has already changed Israel and how it can transform the region. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very, very warm welcome to Erel Margalit.
What a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. I'd like to really thank you, Hugo, for the wonderful work that you and the organization is doing. We're meeting so many of your colleagues as you're coming and visiting us in Israel. Both you and Leon Blitz, who spoke here earlier, in the UK Israeli business for inviting me. I wanted to thank you. And I also wanted to especially thank Mr. Leo Noe, who's going to be receiving an award later on today for his lifetime achievement, especially in his major contribution in helping bring the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel to be part of the economy of the 21st century. And we have with us here tonight Itzik Krombi, who's one of the leaders of the Startup Nation Ultra-Orthodox initiative, and it's just a pleasure to be here as you are receiving this award. I want to also acknowledge Ambassador Regev for the great work that you're doing here and that you have been doing in Israel, Lord Finkelstein, Xavier Rolette, Brad Fried, Brett Hoberman, and Tony Key. And I want to also recognize one of my partners, a woman who is leading the Israel high-tech sector in terms of bringing women into it, Fiona Darmon, who wasn't able to be here tonight, but nevertheless, I'm seeing her aunt and uncle, Benita and Robbie, and I want to just acknowledge her wonderful work and how much of it is here in London. What I wanted to speak to you about tonight is actually, can you still hear me? Yes. Is actually our plans and to show how innovation not only changed a city like Jerusalem, which was ailing and challenged, but also how it changed a country, and how now it's changing different parts of the country, and how some of us think it could also change an entire region with concepts of food and agriculture and water, because our region is dry, and innovation, because so much of our past leaders have told you about how it is all about Arabs against Jews in our region. And over the last 5 years, it's been extremists against those pragmatic countries who have been working quietly together to try to develop both a security and economic development alliance in a way that would bring the region into a different stage. So let's start with how it all started. This is 1967. I'm in the kibbutz Nan. I'm the big brother. The little brother is my brother. He now runs the neurosurgery department in Shaarei Tzedek. He's much smarter than me, of course. And in '93, after working with Teddy Kollek, I founded JVP in a small office in Jerusalem. And today, JVP has a lot of startups, a lot of companies. Some of them have grown and become major companies. We've been very lucky. Many of my colleagues did it in Tel Aviv or Herzliya. We chose to do it in Jerusalem and Beersheba and some of the other parts of the country. And in '96, with 3 little daughters and a wife who's an artist, all of them gave me the strength to go and build businesses. And I think that over the last 20, 22 years, Israel's transformed in a big way. And you have to remember that when we created this revolution in a city like Jerusalem, Jerusalem had some of the biggest security issues. You remember car bombs going off. It was very difficult to send our kids, our daughters, to school. Jerusalem was also the poorest city in the country, and a lot of the younger people were leaving to go to other cities. Yet I think that this is where JVP was sitting. This is the old Mint building, built by, of course, the British, the famous architect of the British Empire, Harrison. And for 40 years, it was standing empty, and the city was going to demolish it. And we turned it into one of the most vibrant incubators for new media and big data and artificial intelligence in the country, in the old train station. We also created a performing arts center for music and performance so that young Jerusalemites, just like their buddies in Tel Aviv, could have the livelihood and the buzz that young people need in order to stay in a city and define it through its creative self. And we also, together with my wife, I created what's today the largest education and community work in 9 different neighborhoods in Jerusalem, because we will see in a minute that Israel is not only the most innovative country in the OECD countries, it also is the country with the biggest gaps still between rich and poor, unfortunately, because we have people coming from so many places around the world. And this program, in and of itself, has created a transformation with Jewish young kids and with Arab young kids, which at the very difficult hours of Jerusalem, where you saw the clash, those civic leaders and kids and families created the kind of coexistence which we needed so badly in order to keep the city going and win. And JVP is a fund that we are fortunate to be among the top 6 this year as it's ranked around the world, with 120 companies that were built. Today we're managing 1.2 billion. We had 32 great exits that we'd like to boast about, like all venture capitalists. And I think you're only as smart as your best companies. And we are smart. We look smart because we have so many smart people around us. And I think that one of the things that Israel was able to do is create a culture where you can succeed together and sometimes fail together, but yet get up and start again and have a new idea and try to build something that's greater than what you thought before. Our Israeli stock market, and I see the head of the stock market here, has not been great for technology companies. So we took all our companies public on NASDAQ, and we promised to consider London if you sell us hard. And we sold some of the companies to some of the largest companies. And Israel was in the core of some of the biggest technology revolutions that occurred over the last 25 years. And JVP, where Hugo, you brought some of the folks, has become really a center for world leaders, because today, leaders all over the world have a big issue. They're losing the communication with their younger population. And if there's one word that Israel should be using, not only in terms of its economic development, but also in terms of its diplomacy, it's the word innovation. Innovation can change things in a big way, and many countries need it, and we have it. Many countries have it, but in working together with us, we can do better. If you look at it, we take 3 things in technology and culture and society and work together. And I think that we are proud that over the last 17 years, 20,000 technology and healthcare jobs were created. And I don't know if you realize this, but a lot of these jobs were also among the Arab population, primarily in healthcare. Today, half of the staff of the hospitals in Israel, nurses and doctors, are Arabs. And so the coexistence and the will to work together is actually exemplified in one sector. And we hope that this could be replicated in others as well, because we need a vision of working together. And Jerusalem, from a city that was far behind, we're still not Tel Aviv, which is number 7, but we're number 28 on the world's startup city list. And if you give us a few more years, now that I'm back from the Knesset, we will get much closer to Tel Aviv, I promise. And what we asked ourselves, and what I asked myself when I walked into the Knesset, is if innovation can transform a city, why can't innovation transform an entire country? Yes, we speak about gaps between rich and poor. We know that there are still big challenges, and we call ourselves a startup nation, and that is true, but not to every parts of society. Still, 21% of adults are under poverty lines according to OECD standards, and 30% of the kids. And so it's not like the 50s, where we were a miracle for our very existence. We are now a strong country. So leaving kids on a 2nd or 3rd generation of poverty behind is a value moral decision. And I'm not going to live in a country where some of us are going to be as successful as anyone around the world, but so many kids are going to be left behind. So many times when you hear that kind of rhetoric, you're saying, let's bring these successful people down. Well, my generation, if 1/3 of the country is successful and 2/3 are behind, let's bring these people that want to be successful up. That's what we know how to do. We don't know how to divide the pie equally in Israel, but we know how to bake new pies. And so the idea is to create 7 new regions of economic and social excellence around the country. These are 7 new pies that we can distribute to the people. And the first place is always trying to identify the competitive advantage of a place that used to be behind. This is not easy. Anybody who tells you it's easy is lying, because you have to figure it out, and it's very difficult, but you need to do it with the leaders, the academic leaders, the social leaders, and most importantly, the young people. And so we have a plan in our nonprofit organization, Israel Initiative 2020, because we created it in 2013, and we said 7 years, like Jacob, who waited for Rachel, and then Leah, and then Rachel again. 7 years, 7 steps for economic and social change in Israel that would change the country in a big way. And so our first stop was Beersheba. Beersheba is a city in the south, and it's a city that had a great university, but the fabric, the economic fabric of the city wasn't that successful. It was actually very low in the social economic level. But we got together with a wonderful mayor, Rubik Danilovich, and an amazing woman who is heading the university, Rivka Karmi, and we came up with the idea. JVP at the time was doing around in CyberArk, which became one of the biggest exits in Israeli history in terms of cybersecurity company. And so we had cyber in mind. And we said, today, this is now 4 years later, 5 years later, Beersheba has some of the leading companies in the world like Oracle and Deutsche Telekom and IBM and PayPal and Dell and Lockheed Martin and many more. And there are 2,000 technology cyber employees of Beersheba on the top level in the world, and 3,500 small businesses, academic services, social services, culture, hotels. Beersheba, it's still not a big number, but it's a new story. And so we are thinking of a new story in the south, and our goal is to create 30,000 technology jobs in Beersheba, 70,000 other jobs of the new generation in Beersheba, 100,000 new jobs for young people in the south. Is a new center of excellence in Israel where you measure the time to it and not from it. And so if we can do that, we could do some other things as well. In the north, you know how they call the north in Israel? Periferia, periphery. Think about it. You land in Italy, you take a Maserati, the car I didn't buy when I was in the Knesset, and you drive 10 hours to the north. What do they call it? Piedmonte. They have the Barbaresco. They have the cars. They have beautiful things. In Israel, you land in Ben Gurion. You take an old Subaru. You drive 2 hours to the north, and they call it the periphery. You know what the periphery is called in international language? The Galilee. You come to Italy and you speak to a company and you say, we're doing something in the Galilee. They say, oh, the Galilee. Yes, it's beautiful. Have you been? No, but I know. The Galilee is beautiful. So this is one of the greatest brands that Israel has, yet in Hebrew we call it periferia. So what are we doing in the Galilee? We are bringing together 3 concepts of food and agriculture and healthcare and technology. And so the Galilee, together with the kibbutzim and the moshavim and the Arab villages and the Druze villages, each one having their own agricultural strategy, is going to become the food tech hub of Israel, and all of you are invited to participate. And I know you're investing in the Arava, in a company that's taking seaweed and making the most concentrated antioxidant substance in nature. And so, Leon, you can give that as an example of how food can change healthcare and change the world. Well, we can do that in the Galilee too, and Israel can become a strong place. And in the middle of Kiryat Shmona, which is a little bit of a down and out city, but a lot of the young people are coming back, we're creating Israel's food tech quarter. And we want to see, we've just signed an agreement with Rutgers University, between Rutgers and Tel Chai College. Once again, we're inviting you to be part of this. And we want 15,000 technology jobs, 25,000 other jobs. We want the Galilee to flourish. And I'm a social democrat, I was in the Labor Party, but I'm a new form of social democrat because I want the people in the Galilee to get the highest salary in the country. And the only way the people in Beersheba and the people in the Galilee will get high salaries is if they do something so innovative that Tel Aviv will be jealous or cooperate. And London will be jealous or cooperate. And we're doing some things in Haifa in the digital health, together with Intel, together with Philips, together with some of the other companies in the downtown seaport area. We had an amazing event there. We want 30,000 technology jobs in Haifa and 70,000 other jobs. And in general, in a few years, we want to see 250,000 new quality jobs of the highest level in the country. And anybody who says that Israel cannot jump and transform itself is blind to the opportunity. And innovation can change our country and can give those people who come from families that were not that privileged, but are just as talented as the people in Herzliya or elsewhere, be part of what we're doing. And one of the things that that Hugo spoke about is we're taking this concept of innovation. And we heard so many of our leaders saying how things are impossible and how much we have to fear and what it is that Israel has to give up. But what we're saying today, what if innovation, beyond transforming a country, can be the bridge to transforming an entire region? Because right now, we're used to looking at each other in the region primarily through a lens of a gun. And the region is dry, and the region needs new concepts and new ideas and new initiatives so that it could provide jobs for the 70 million young people that will need jobs in our region if they're going to be successful whatsoever. And so we created a group that's called Yalla, the power of Yalla. In Arabic, Yalla means let's go. In Hebrew, Yalla means let's go too. And we created, and what Hugo said was right. Instead of doing an Arab-Israeli thing, we just created the Mediterranean Innovation Forum, and we had our first meeting in Italy. So everybody showed up. And what we're talking about is big concepts. And actually the head of the forum is Renato Soro, who used to be the governor of Sardinia. And he's hosting us next time, so you all may want to register. And the idea is to take this 10 cities, 10 ideas, 10 projects that will change the way you think about the Mediterranean basin. You think about the countries that are suffering, that's true. But look at the cities. These are strong cities. These are cities that tell stories of history. These are cities that used to be powerhouses of technology, of innovation, of economy, and of spiritual leadership. And if we found some innovative people in each one of these cities, we found a bridge for cooperation. And the first one is so strange that you'd think that Israel and some Arab countries are working together. I used to be the head of the cybersecurity task force in the Israeli Knesset because of my background. And Israel has a national CERT in Beersheba, which is dealing with different kinds of verticals on the civilian level in pharmaceuticals, in banking, in retail, in utilities, in industry, infrastructure, where we cooperate in each of the sectors so that the sector is well protected against country defenses and attacks and against small attacks. And you know that the biggest, everybody talks about the Iranian nuclear issue, but there's also the Iranian cyber attack issue. They are now attacking almost every country in the region. ISIS is attacking countries in the region, primarily on the civilian level, because the armies are well protected. And so we have decided to create sort of an alliance, a soft alliance of cooperation, definitely with countries in Europe, definitely between Israel and the UK. Matthew Gold, who was the British ambassador to Israel, was a leader in that respect and was very much there when we created some of the first concept of international cooperation, but also with some Arab countries. Just recently, and I only will speak about things that were sort of written up, Aramco, the Saudi oil company, was attacked by one of the 11 corporations that are backed by the Iranian regimes, and they played with the security valves in a major refinery which could have caused a huge explosion. Well, some of us were able to be helpful by communicating with each other in the region. The same thing with utilities in Jordan that were attacked by ISIS. The same thing with different kinds of considerations in which we are working together quietly, but it is building a strong trust of quiet diplomacy in a way that can create the foundation for trust in political situations which may be more challenging a little later as we go. And the other is creating regional hubs of innovation between different cities and just cooperating. One of the things that we have in Jerusalem is JVP Play. We just had JVP Play when we have Tesco as one of our participants, and we have Paul, the head of Tesco Labs. Where are you, Paul? Please stand up, please. And you should know that they are working in a big way in Jerusalem, and we were visiting together Rawabi, which is the Palestinian town about 15 kilometers from Jerusalem, and we allowed Palestinian entrepreneurs to participate in the competition. JVP Play saw about 500 startups and chose about 10, and it was amazing to see men, young women that want to try to create their next startup find the language of innovation as a common language that allowed us to communicate in a way that we felt was very powerful. And the same thing with, London plays a major role because London has all these hubs of innovation, and so many of the international community and Israelis are coming here. We were actually visiting today hubs of innovation across the city, and we're actually thinking that London can play a role because it also has a big community from the Middle East and a big community from Israel. And I can tell you that we are thinking about London, and Macron is pressing us to think about Paris. What is going to be the European-Israeli hub for companies that are now expanding for very strong cooperation between the two countries on a variety of new themes? Because if you think about it, in 5 years, half of the brands that you have today in business would disappear because of artificial intelligence and the kind of technologies that are coming in that are changing businesses one by one. And Israel is not the leader of all these business categories, but Israel can facilitate each of these business categories if we work together. So we are talking about Casablanca, and we're talking about Dubai, and Istanbul, and Ramallah, and Cairo, and a variety of places where we're now cooperating softly without the need to have governments involved around healthcare IT, around agriculture and food security, around different kind of cybersecurity defenses, and around big data, artificial intelligence, things that we are doing together, just like we're doing with other parts of the world. And then the other concept is water, because Israel is a world power with desalination and reuse of water, wastewater treatment. And what we're saying is there's a big project right now that hopefully the two governments, Israel and Jordan, will finally get its act together, because there are 5 final bidders in what's called the Red Dead project, which is taking water from the Red Sea, making them sweet water in the desalination process, giving water to the Jordanian and Israeli Arava, getting the salty water to the Dead Sea because it needs water urgently. The Dead Sea is dying. And something that's a real great project. There's 5 major companies from around the world that have come to the finish line. And this is something that is a good example of how things could move forward. One other project, when there's a nonprofit organization that's working on it, is actually bringing the Jordan River back from a sewage canal to a real river. Just like 100 years ago when Allenby crossed the Jordan River, you can see in these photos it was a real clean river. And in the last 100 years, they took water from the river and gave it back sewage. So now we can clean the water, and Jordanians, Palestinians, and Israeli mayors are working on this project to bring the river back to life, to bring the birds back to fly over it, and to create 3 economic zones in the region which could really change the economic fabric of what's going on around that river and return many tourists that see the Jordan River as something so holy to visit and be a part of it. There are many more projects that we can talk about, but let me leave you with one message. The message is this: Israel's leadership is going through some challenging time. Let's put it in a very diplomatic way. If I was in the Knesset, I would use more direct language, but I'm among friends from abroad. We need new concepts. We need new ideas. We need new energy to move this region forward and to move our country forward. Israel has an abundance of ideas that you see in the technology field. You call it sometimes the startup nation. Well, the startup nation generation wants to change many things, including the political life, because we need innovation in every place that Israel touches upon. And we're calling you to be a part of it, because this question is not just a question about leadership in Israel. This question is a question about leadership among all of us in the Jewish people, and where do we want to see ourselves in the next 100 years, and how we want to take action today to bring the creativity and the innovation and the thoughtfulness that so many of you and so many of us have into the forefront of our vision and of our message. Thank you so much.